life is about finding your passion, and it's easier said than done. I mean, everyone says, look for your passion and go for it, but a lot of people just don't know what they want to do, and it really takes a lot of trial and error of testing out different things and seeing what draws you. And those things in your life that you obsess over are the things that you're passionate about.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing and very exciting episode of the Superhuman Life. As always, guys, I am your host, Frank Rich. And before we jump into today's episode, guys, let me remind you who we are and what we're doing here. This is the Superhuman Life, and we are the only podcast in the world that is dedicated to helping men break free from the shackles of porn addiction through the power of faith and fitness. And we do that every single week with these episodes by bringing on guests, by bringing on experts, just like we have here today, to provide a level of insights, a level of education, but real practical takeaways that you can walk away with and begin to implement into your life. Not always discussing addiction, not always discussing pornography, but ultimately, men, we're out there to help you remove barriers in your life, find breakthroughs, and step into the life that you know you were created to live. And guys, we have an amazing conversation today. We're all about looking at alternative approaches, looking at alternative methods to health, to wellness, to care, to biohacking, and all of the above. And today's conversation is really a deep dive into some of the powerful healing benefits of medicinal mushrooms. I have not done a lot of my own research on this, so today's conversation was really it was an education for me. I had some questions that I wanted some clarity on. I wanted a deeper understanding of the power of these mushrooms and what's out there and what's available, and why should we be looking at these for healing? Why should we be looking at these for our health benefits? So today I have one of the world's leading experts on, speaking with Amir Karian. Amir is part ownership in the largest vertically integrated mushroom farm in the world and is founder of his new venture, Alchemy Mushrooms, which we get into today, which grows and retails functional and medicinal mushrooms. Now, Amir grew up in a family of mushroom farmers, but his passion for mycology only began when there was a need for his personal healing. After difficult and chronic autoimmune diagnosis, he looked towards every avenue of medicine to help him get back on his feet. When traditional medicine failed him, he navigated towards holistic remedies, where he was introduced to the world of medicinal mushrooms. He spent years working his way back to health with every herb, adaptogen, and tonic available. What truly made a difference was mushrooms. Now, learning firsthand the power of medicinal mushrooms was something he knew he had to share with others, and became a part of the family of farmers was a blessing that he couldn't overlook. So Amir spent the next several years utilizing all the experience and knowledge of mushroom farming that he had been perfected over the generations of research, development, and growing to the highest quality medicinal mushrooms locally in California. Now, Amir's passion for mycology has led him to the forefront of mushroom technology of the world of health, wellness, and sustainable solutions. So guys, we get into, a little bit of this story. What was this autoimmune issue that he had to break through, and what were doctors telling him? He was given some pretty dire, news and told that we can't help you with this. We can maybe help you manage it. But he wasn't willing to accept that. We then get into, some of the different functional mushrooms that are out there, breaking down, his top picks, 4 or 5 of, the most researched, the most beneficial. And we explain to you what they are, how they can benefit you, what the, what the benefits are. We get a little bit into the use of psychedelics, both in larger dosages and how it's being utilized in research institutions such as Johns Hopkins, and some of the research that's coming out of there. But then also the use of microdosing, which I have Amir do an amazing job of explaining what that is. And just prefacing this conversation, guys, we obviously address it throughout the episode. We're not licensed doctors. We're not here prescribing, medical advice. We're having a conversation about something that Amir is an expert in and something I'm interested in. So nothing we give here is medical advice, especially on the psychedelic side of things. It's just a conversation that is starting to be had out there in the world of research, and probably something that we're going to, begin to see roll out to the general public. So we talk about that. We talk about his brand new venture in his company, Alchemy Mushrooms, and where you guys can learn more about that. But guys, it's an amazing conversation. Super fascinating. If you guys have ever had questions about mushrooms, and we're not talking about the mushrooms that you see in your produce. We talk about those and why those need to be in your diet as well. But going deeper into, some of these lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, et cetera, et cetera. So really hope you guys enjoy this. It was a very fun conversation to be involved in. Like I said, I treated it as an education for myself to get some clarity on things that I wanted answers on. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So without further ado, guys, let's get into today's conversation with Amir Karian, talking about the powerful healing benefits of medicinal mushrooms. Hope you enjoy. Yeah, Amir, brother, welcome to the Superhuman Life.
Good to be here.
Yeah, man, really excited to dive in here today. As I was telling you, growing up, mushrooms is something that I didn't even enjoy eating. It probably wasn't until I was 30 years old that I actually enjoy even eating mushrooms for food, for nutritional purposes. And like I said, I've kind of explored a little bit of some of the more performance boosting ones, lion's mane, reishi, and whatnot. But I'm really excited to kind of dive in and just learn about what you guys are doing over there at Alchemy and your other company. But I think where I want to start here is really talking about your story and your journey, much like most of the guests that we've had here. The work that they're doing today is a result of this kind of life's journey that they've had to go through. And I know that's really a part of you and your passion for educating people on the medicinal benefits of mushrooms. So can you kind of maybe share a little bit about how you got to where you are today, and what has led you to starting Alchemy, and why you're so passionate about talking about mushrooms?
Yeah, man. So I was actually born into a family of mushroom farmers. So I kind of came out of the womb a farmer. It kind of just like the lifestyle chose me. But I wasn't super passionate about it early on. I would spend, some time at the farms when I was younger, learning about the business and things like that. But I didn't have a clear vision of where I wanted to go with it. And like you, yeah, I would eat mushrooms here and there, but it wasn't like I was obsessed with mushrooms and like the taste of it. I think a lot of people feel that way. They've kind of always been that like weird food in the produce aisle that no one really knows how to cook or like what to do with. So yeah, early on, it was kind of just understanding what our business was. But it wasn't until I dealt with a really difficult autoimmune illness that just changed the perspective of and direction of my life when it comes to mushrooms. I was diagnosed shortly after college with Lyme disease, and I don't know if you know much about Lyme disease or your listeners do, but it can be very debilitating, and it's one of those illnesses that can manifest in so many different symptoms. So doctors don't even know you have it much of the time because you have to very specifically test for it. I had everything from intense brain fog to horrendous fatigue. I could barely get off the couch most days, really bad nausea. So just a whole bunch of symptoms. And at that point I was 20 years old, and I would be going to top doctors, infectious disease doctors, asking them, okay, let me know what I got to do. Give me the antibiotics, give me the pills, and let's move on. I have a whole life to live. So yeah, essentially after being told by so many different physicians that I was not going to be able to be cured, I kind of went down a different path, tried to find alternative medicines that could help me. And I was introduced to a nutritionist, a holistic nutritionist that was claiming she can cure Lyme, which sounds really insane to someone when doctors can't really cure it. How is a nutritionist? But I was really desperate, so I followed through with her, and she put me on this intense protocol, a little over a year and a half of just really strict diet, nothing but steamed vegetables and like the cleanest grass-fed lamb and Alaskan salmon. So I was eating nothing, and I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't do any of that. And then the other part of it was really a lot of supplements, and all of the supplements it was all herbal. So it was just different roots, different flowers, and mushrooms. And I had no idea what any of these mushrooms were, but I was started to study them because there was a mushroom in almost every single supplement. This one had cordyceps, this one had reishi, this one had turkey tail. And coming from a background of mushroom farmers, after going through that process, I knew that there was something here because I went back to the original physicians that actually diagnosed me, and we did a follow-up PCR test, and I was cured. There was nothing inside me. And the guy, the doctor's jaw was literally on the floor. He got his like pen and paper out. He said, "Tell me every single thing you did." Um, and I can't like in good faith say take mushrooms, they'll cure Lyme, but I truly believe that the body has everything in its arsenal to heal itself. You just have to give it the tools it needs. And that's what mushrooms can do. Mushrooms help upregulate the immune system and can support so many different organs and organ function so that your body has the fighting chance, to like cure itself from Lyme disease. Because what autoimmune diseases do is they just beat down on different organs and functions. So your adrenals are really depleted, your liver is really toxic, it's not detoxifying properly. So yeah, and that started my passion for this. I went back to the family business and I was asking, hey, do we grow any of these? Do we sell any of these? And the answer was no, because it back then it was very niche. No one was really buying this, especially in the U.S. It was mainly Eastern Chinese medicine. So it wasn't something that our family wanted to get involved with because there probably wouldn't be much demand. But I was
What year
excited.
was this?
This was back in 2015,
Okay.
2016 maybe. So just before it started getting a little popular in the US. I would say the past 2 to 3 years is really when we've seen this like explosion happening in the world of medicinal and functional mushrooms. So yeah, I don't want to not grow these mushrooms just because the company thought I wouldn't make money. So I kind of just took it upon myself at that point. And while I was working on the farms there, I converted this old shipping container that we had sitting in our parking lot to like a mini farm. I set up lights and humidifiers and all this to start learning how to grow these mushrooms. And over 4 or 5 years, really started to perfect and optimize the medicinal components and the potency of these mushrooms and how to grow them really well. And fast forward 4 or 5 years later, we're getting so much demand for these mushrooms. Everybody's looking for chaga powder. Everyone's looking for reishi powder. And so I get a phone call saying, "Hey, we need to add this to our line of products. Can we make it happen?" And so yeah, that's really why I'm sitting here. That was the birth of alchemy because I wanted a method to connect with the end user of these products and get these products out to the world. And we're excited to be launching a wholesale division so we can actually sell the raw powder to different food manufacturers and retailers and supplement companies. So
Yeah, that's great. No, I appreciate you, sharing all that. I mean, from the dieting perspective, like I get completely, what your nutritionist had you kind of going through. So, I'm not too familiar with Lyme specifically, but I was dating a girl for about 3.5, 4 years that had some major autoimmune issues. She had junior rheumatoid arthritis, and I really stayed with her, through into adulthood, and then living here in Florida, we found ourselves in a home that had black mold, and this just started attacking her. Much like you, where there was no answer to what was going on. She was seeing 3, 4 expert doctors every single week, taking 14, 15 different medicines. And I didn't feel the impact at the time on me, but in doing research for her, I stumbled across, what in essence is the ultimate elimination diet, which is, the carnivore diet. It was, Michaela Peterson had really started talking about it around late 2018. So knowing what I knew about health and fitness, I'm like, I think that we can help you, Stephanie, if you approach this diet and look into it. She's like, I don't know if I want to do it. So I jumped into it and said, well, I'm going to try it out on myself. And coming out of that, because like I said, I've been living in this house for probably a year with black mold, and it slowly started affecting me, not really noticing the negative impacts. But when I went 60 days on just a pure elimination diet, it's like all this clarity, like kind of started to open up. And ultimately I feel that is what got me out of there and, led her and kind of cured some of her things. So I understand the nutrition side, eliminating everything. You said you're eating kind of salmon, lamb, and veggies, and that was it. Now, with your family's business prior to, were you guys growing just like your store, like your produce mushrooms, or what was the business about then?
yeah, exactly. We were growing what you consider gourmet mushrooms. So
Okay.
brown and white buttons that you find in like omelets and pizzas, and then portobellas and some shiitakes, stuff like that. Which, I mean, all of them have medicinal benefits, but they're not what you consider, the functional mushrooms that we have today, that a
Yeah.
lot of people are looking at.
So transitioning to getting into some of the functional medicinal mushrooms. I know we can't go through all of them, but what are the main ones that people should know about, and then what are the benefits of those mushrooms?
Yeah, so one of my favorite mushrooms is called Cordyceps, and I think you'd relate a lot to this one, just coming from like an athletic background. Cordyceps can support various organ functions, primarily adrenal and kidney function. And why that's important is because a lot of people are coffee drinkers. I don't know if you drink coffee or any sort of caffeine. Caffeine just wears down your adrenals because you're waking up from not optimal sleep and you're not feeling super fresh. So first thing you do in the morning is you drink your coffee just to stimulate yourself. And that stimulation is almost fake energy because what your body really needs at that point is sleep or proper nutrition. But you have to get to work, so you chug this coffee and you're like wired. And then eventually doing that so many days in a row, you lose the ability to sleep well at night because you develop adrenal fatigue. And it can manifest. Adrenal fatigue is different in different people. Some people crash heavily, just in the later part of the afternoon. Some people feel really like fidgety and like anxious. So it can manifest in different symptoms. But what cordyceps does is the exact opposite. Instead of where caffeine can wear your adrenals down, cordyceps can actually support your adrenal function and help balance out, stabilize your energy. So I drink coffee almost every day. I try to like cycle off of it sometimes, but I always add cordyceps. I take a couple of cordyceps capsules, or I add the powder into my coffee or smoothie, and that way I'm stabilizing my energy a little bit more and boosting adrenal function, whereas the caffeine is starting to wear them down.
Do you notice it allows you to drink less coffee, less caffeine, because your body is assimilating and processing it better?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because cordyceps can help regulate your circadian rhythm, which is essentially your sleep clock. So it helps you, when you take cordyceps consistently, it can help you feel awake when the sun is up and during daytime, and it helps you sleep when the sun goes down. So that's for that reason you don't feel that you need as much coffee because the cycle of coffee is really brutal on you.
So would this be a good supplement for somebody that is maybe struggling with falling asleep, like based on whatever, like obviously it's not a black and white answer, but if a person has a hard time shutting the brain down at the end of the day, or once they're laying in bed, they lay there for 4 hours just mindlessly thinking about the meaning of the universe, or whatever people think about when they're laying in bed. Like if they're having difficulties falling asleep, like would supplementing with cordyceps first thing in the morning help regulate that circadian rhythm, like you said?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially because a lot of that can come from just overactive, stimulation from caffeine, and you're wearing out your adrenal glands, and then you just have trouble sleeping at night. So I think if you can cut back your caffeine usage by supplementing with, natural remedies like cordyceps mushrooms, you can definitely help sleep at night. And on top of that, another mushroom that can be great for relaxation is called reishi. Reishi has been found to mitigate and support healthy blood pressure. So a lot of people will take it in the afternoons to kind of relax and get into like their Zen mode. So that's a really beneficial mushroom for, I would say, if you're looking for a winding down mushroom, that's my go-to.
Got it. So with cordyceps, is there a recommended ratio or dose? Like for every cup of coffee, take X amount of cordyceps to keep things balanced.
Yeah, there's a lot of different studies, and all of the different studies are using different dosages for different reasons. So it's hard to say exactly use this for this. The recommended dosage, obviously, is not an FDA recommendation, but what has been shown to be successful in clinical trials has been anywhere from 200 milligrams to about a gram to even 2 grams. There's been some clinical studies done with athletes because cordyceps can also help. You extend your workout time to exhaustion. and also maximize your VO2 consumption. So VO2 max is essentially how much oxygen your blood, your muscles can utilize, and the efficiency of your muscles utilizing oxygen. So they've done this study on athletes either swimming or running or doing like stationary cycling, and they're finding that the ones that are supplementing just 3 weeks with cordyceps mushrooms, about 1 gram to 2 grams, were able to work out much longer without feeling that effect of fatigue, and they're able to recover faster because the increased oxygen efficiency in their blood and their muscles is reducing lactic acid buildup. So
Yeah, no, I love that. So we got cordyceps, improve organ function, help regulate adrenals. We got Reishi for relaxation, more of an afternoon kind of wind down. I know lion's mane is a big one. It's got focus benefits. It's got some athletic performance benefits, if I remember correctly. Talk about lion's mane, and then any other ones that the audience would benefit of hearing about.
lion's mane is actually becoming the most popular functional mushroom in the US. Everyone is obsessed with lion's mane right now. Just this whole like nootropic kind of trend that we're seeing. So lion's mane, kind of, it looks exactly like what the name is. It has these like shaggy white teeth that drip down. It's not really your classic like stem and cap mushroom. And when you supplement with lion's mane, it codes for proteins that promote nerve growth factor in the brain, which protects and stimulates kind of growth of neurons. So it can help with things like cognitive function, memory recall, focus. I notice, it's anecdotal, but I notice when I take lion's mane regularly, I'm sharper. Words come to me much more quickly in conversation. I don't really stumble on what I'm thinking about. And the clinical studies are really promising too for potentially being a treatment for dementia-related illnesses and neuropathies. So they've done studies with mice. It's been kind of exclusive to mice right now, but they're finding that they've injected these mice with a neurotoxin that kind of models the effect of Alzheimer's. And before injecting them, they'd have them run through this maze and find, the cheese. And they were successfully able to do that within a couple of minutes. And after injecting them with this neurotoxin, they were completely confused, couldn't find, any direction to go in. And they found out that after supplementing with lion's mane extracts, that they actually completely, like, significantly improved their brain function, and they returned to almost optimal cognition levels. And what that's showing us is that it has the ability to remove the plaque buildup that forms on the brain that kind of can hinder neurotransmission. So it can improve those symptoms that come with dementia, which is crazy because right now the drugs that are prescribed for Alzheimer's, they really just are slowing down the onset. None of them can reverse it. This has the potential to actually reverse Alzheimer's. So obviously a lot more studies need to be done. But I take it every day, and I think it's something that people in older age can really benefit from to maintain sharpness in their cognitive function.
Yeah, and like I was telling you, before we got started, the work that I do is centered around addiction, and addiction to pornography is it's a addiction of the brain. Your certain areas of your brain get hijacked, and the men that I all work with, struggle with focus, struggle with clarity, and we understand it, due to kind of what's happened here in the prefrontal cortex. It sounds like these men could benefit. Not saying that taking lion's mane is going to be the solvent for your issues with pornography, because you got to work on your character development there. But it seems like it could definitely be a tool or resource to help men that are really struggling with focus and clarity.
I completely agree. There was another sample that was done this was done on women, about 30 women, that were given lion's mane supplementation for about a month, and they significantly reduced their depression and anxiety. So they kind of just like tests that would scale their levels of depression, their levels of anxiety in different forms, and it reduced them. So it's really helpful with mood as well. And everyone can relate that when your mood is optimistic, everything about you changes. And when your mood is depressed, your immune system is depressed. Like everything about you kind of, you're not as high functioning, and yeah, so it can be
Exactly. Yeah. Now, have there been any follow up studies on those? Like, once, like, if you're taking the lion's mane and it's improving focus or depression, effects, like that's obviously a result of the mushrooms and the work that they're doing. If somebody gets off of that, like, has there been any follow up? Like, do they revert back to the old thought patterns, or does it kind of rewire, reprogram the brain a little bit?
From what we're saying, it's really like it's a supplement like any other, and a supplement's only as good as your consistency and your dedication to it. So, like vitamin C, you can take vitamin C to support your immune system, and you can take high doses or even vitamin D for several weeks. And if you think that that's going to carry you for the next several years, it doesn't necessarily work. The commitment's key.
Got it. So with some of these dosages, and I know obviously, seek medical professional advice, and do your own research before you start, figuring out your dosages. Is there a tolerance effect though? Like, if I start taking 200 milligrams of cordyceps, or 200 milligrams of lion's mane today, and I consistently take that every day for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, do I need to continue to up my dosages to get the same effect, or will 200 milligrams always have the same effect of 200 milligrams?
To our knowledge, there hasn't been any report that there is a tolerance buildup to these natural functional mushrooms. So that it's really support more than stimulation, and that's why I believe that there isn't a factor of like getting too used to it. Like caffeine, obviously there's a tolerance buildup because it's a stimulation, but this is more of underlying foundational support. And so for that reason, I don't believe that people see that effect.
Got it. Got it. No, I appreciate that. Any other important ones we should address here? We got cordyceps, Rishi's, lion's mane. Any other really big ones that people need to know about?
In terms of functional mushrooms, one that is showing a lot of promise, and I want to be careful. Obviously, I'm not a physician,
Of
just by
course.
saying what is being studied out there. There's a mushroom called turkey tail. Turkey tail has two polysaccharides, which are essentially a fancy word for sugar. They're carbohydrates that have been shown to really support the immune system, and can fight cancer. So it's actually a prescribed drug in Japan right now for people that are going through chemotherapy and radiation therapy because it helps upregulate the immune system, and it makes the cancer treatment much more effective. So that's something that we're super excited about, furthering studies for, especially in the U.S. It can be something that really helps people. It's been shown to be effective in modulating immune system for breast cancer patients as well. So that one's exciting also.
Yeah. Has there been any? I mean, obviously, I know it's new, and if you can't address it. Anything virus really? Obviously, immune system, turkey tail, strengthen your immune system, fight off viruses. But anything specifically, with fighting off, viral infections or anything in those terms?
Yeah, most of these mushrooms actually have antibacterial and antiviral properties. So your cordyceps, your turkey tail, your reishi, even a mushroom called chaga. The kind of the overarching benefit of most of these mushrooms is immune support. So, and it's because of those antiviral and antibacterial properties. Chaga is another one that is, they call it the king of medicinal mushrooms. And chaga is really fascinating because of its antioxidant capacity. So when you think of like high antioxidant foods, you think of cacao or acai or blueberries. Chaga blows them all out of the water. It is significantly higher than the next five. Um, and so that can help with like cell regeneration and protection against oxidative stress. So yeah, these mushrooms are amazing for viruses and fighting off bacterial infections and things like that.
Why in your opinion, like, is this not like being taught? Mushrooms are not new. They've been around, since the beginning. And obviously you mentioned, Eastern medicine and whatnot, and we've seen a small, rise here, in the biohacking communities and spaces and whatnot. Like why this conversation like sitting at the forefront of every educational institution, from young children to to secondary universities and healthcare professionals, like why isn't this being discussed?
Sadly, it's all about the money. So these mushrooms have been taken in, Eastern medicine for thousands of years, some of them. So it's nothing new, but it seems like it's becoming a new nutritional practice in the Western world. And, the biggest reason is that you can't make money off of patenting it. So the clinical studies behind it are limited. So when you think of like most drugs on the market are actually derived from natural sources like plants and things like that. But they're able to extract like the silver bullet chemical in them and formulate it in a way that they can actually patent it. And if you can patent a drug, there's a reason to do clinical studies because you have to go through, 3 phases of clinical studies in order for something to be a regulated and patented drug. But you can't do that with these mushrooms. You can't patent reishi. You can't patent lion's mane. So for a pharmaceutical or a major corporation to come in and say, we're going to do clinical studies on turkey tail, it doesn't give them any reward to be spending that $1 billion on 3 phases of clinical studies because the whole industry will benefit because they can't get a patent on it. So I think that's really been the hindrance to really pushing these medicines to the forefront. And pharmaceutical companies dominate the market. So they're the ones that are creating the drugs, and and those drugs are the ones being taught in medical schools. So then doctors are the ones learning that curriculum and being taught, okay, when you have these symptoms, this is the patented drug from this pharmaceutical company that I will give you. It's just what they know. And I think there's so much to learn about the healing nature of different plants and what they can do for the body. And personally, I don't believe there's much of a need for a lot of the different prescribed drugs out there. Obviously, much of them are miracles and breakthroughs, but I think that if people are supporting their bodies with proper nutrition, with different herbs and different mushrooms and just good food, you're preventing the illnesses from happening rather than taking this pill that this doctor told me to, which is going to maybe solve this issue, but now I got 10 more I have to worry about because this is damaging my liver.
I feel I knew that answer. I'm glad I asked it, and I appreciate your honesty. I really do. We need more people like you. We need more people with your knowledge and expertise out there, calling it like it is, telling the truth. Not here to destroy anybody or take anybody down. But like it's that's what we're all about here, man. We're like I told you before we started, we're about educating people on things and providing alternative solutions. So, you know, I I want to transition here because we talked about this before recording. And I want to get into some of the addiction stuff and some of the things that are being studied. Maybe not with these functional ones, but some of the other mushrooms that we have out there. So as we get into this part of the conversation, guys, I just want to preface this: we're not prescribing any medical advice. We're just two men having a conversation. We're inviting you guys in to listen on what we're going to discuss. So, can you talk about psilocybin a little bit and some of the research that you've seen with the benefits of psychedelics?
Yeah, so psychedelics is really, I think, piquing everyone's interest the most right now with all of these mushrooms. There's so much excitement in this field. There's a lot of studies being conducted right now in different countries. And yeah, it's showing a lot of promise for a multitude of different ailments right now, including addiction. So psychedelic mushrooms have a chemical called psilocybin. And psilocybin, when you eat a mushroom, that psilocybin is going through your digestive system, breaks down into a chemical called psilocin, which then can bind to a subset of your serotonin receptors, the serotonin 2A receptors. And that begins exploding your receptors with signaling. And it can cause neurons that don't normally fire to just start exploding. They're just, connectivity is increased between different neural pathways, and it increases, and it kind of can divert from normal communication in the brain. So what that does is it can downregulate what's called the default mode network in the brain. And this network is really an egotistical, way of thinking. And so when you can downregulate that and start new neural connections and pathways and receptors from firing, what's happening is you break conventional thinking and you can get out of these destructive grooves of thought that you're in, to kind of reset the brain. And this is all, from research that's happening right now. I'm not saying this is like exactly, take a mushroom and this will happen, but this is what, the science is telling us. And that reset of the brain can be beneficial for a lot of different types of behavioral change, including addiction. And right now it's being studied with cigarette smokers and alcoholics, and can translate into gambling and porn addiction. Also can be very helpful in treatment resistant depression. So people that are depressed and they're on and off Prozac with no success are finding significant results with psilocybin. And so why is this successful in these different ailments? So what's happening is, people typically have an ego. They have walls and barriers up that are kind of just narratives and stories that we tell ourselves about our own life and the lives of others and everything around us. So I am a male, and I can't get through my day without waking up and hitting a cigarette, and I need to have this for breakfast, and these people are, I don't know, just different narratives that you have in your life. And they can be really destructive, because if you have a mentality that, I'm addicted to this, you immediately wake up and your thought process is, I need to go do that because that's my life. And so when taking these mushrooms, they're finding that it can break down those walls of the ego, and you can separate yourself from what your body and what your mind thinks of yourself. So they've done some different studies with alcoholics and cigarette smokers. And one of them that was really amazing was actually done with terminally ill cancer patients. And these cancer patients were just paralyzed with fear of their own mortality. This was a study done at Johns Hopkins. And, if you were to think, you're terminally ill, I would suspect if you tried to make me trip hard on mushrooms, it would be the worst idea ever, because my brain is like so filled with negativity and fear. Why would I want to be tripping right now? It's just going to exacerbate everything. But the exact opposite actually happened. These people compared the experience to one of the most profound things in their life, like having a child. Some actually compared it to, the experience of having a child, and it completely changed their perspective on their life and their death and what it means to move beyond your own self. So studies like that are really exciting, and exciting to see where the future of this medicine goes.
Yeah. Now, a lot of this research that you're talking about here, this is single dose, or this is higher dosages that they're taking. Is there any research supporting microdosing of psilocybin? And if so, can you talk about the benefits or use and what people are getting out of microdosing?
Yeah, so you're right. Most of the clinical studies that are being done with high doses, about 5 grams of synthetic psilocybin, which is a lot of mushrooms.
It's a
It's a
hero's
really,
dose.
yeah, it's intense. And those aren't. It's not like you go to a therapist or physician and they're writing down a prescription saying, "Here, go get your mushrooms and go home and have fun." You're going into a therapeutic session and you're being guided by a trained therapist, and it's not a one-time thing. You're actually prepping yourself, because the setting and the intention is very important in the therapy. I look at the mushrooms like a tool. It's not solely the medicine. It's 50% of the medicine. The rest, it's providing a gateway for your mind to be reset. And the therapy is really important for it. It's for these, healing a lot of these addictions, and different neuropathies. But microdosing is definitely exciting. Microdosing essentially is a sub-perceptive dose. So where we think of a dose that's high enough to have people trip is about 1 gram and up. A microdose is typically around 100 milligrams, so 0.1 or 1/10 of a gram to about half of a gram. And the idea is not to hallucinate or trip if you are, you're well beyond a microdose. And theoretically and very anecdotally, it's intended to help boost creativity and mood in individuals. And I think right now the science hasn't caught up with anecdotal evidence. A lot of people swear by it, and it's definitely exciting to see that this could be something that is recreationally used or supplemented for enhancing mood and creativity. But I think the science definitely needs to catch up. There's been one study out of Yale on mice that found that a single dose of psilocybin was able to increase neural connectivity in the frontal cortex of the brain. So there's evidence there that it works, but more needs to be done. And I think that's the debate a lot of people are having right now in the space. Should this be something that people take home and just use all the time, whenever they want? Because they're powerful, powerful drugs. This really can impact the perception of your brain and the chemistry of your brain. So I think if the industry was to move down into the path of utilizing microdosing as a recreation or supplementation, there needs to be a way to kind of mitigate people from overusing it or taking too much of it, that they can, potentially cause harm to themselves. So.
Yeah, because it's my understanding that psilocybin does have a like a dose dependency. So, what point two will do today, if you took point two every day for 60 days, like it's not going to give you the same. So it's a little bit different than I think some of the other functional ones. Do you foresee us having, whether it's in our lifetime or sooner or later on, like where you can walk into, a pharmacy store, Walgreens or pharmacy department and just pick up some psilocybin, and like do you foresee us ever getting there to where like people are just microdosing like on their own or under the advisory of a doctor?
It's hard to say, but it seems like that's the direction things are going, especially when you look at like cannabis. Cannabis started with medicinal use only, which is what we're going to start seeing with psilocybin. You can go to a guided therapy session with an expert, and that's going to be the first step. And then from then it might be a prescribed dose, that a physician can give you, and then from there we may see licensed retailers that can incorporate small doses in different foods like edibles and things like that. It's definitely the direction we're going, but there needs to be a lot of regulation, in my opinion, in place to make sure that it's done properly and not abused, because it's a very abusable drug. Like you said, it does, you can build up a tolerance very quickly with psychedelics. And one good thing about it though is that psychedelics almost have a hindrance profile to them. So when you I don't do hard drugs, but I know that it's very easily addictive. You can take this one time and then you just want to up it the next time, and you just down the rabbit hole. But with psilocybin, if anyone who's ever taken like a hero's dose or anything even close to it, the next day you're like, I'm good. I don't want any more for a while. So that's a positive, and I think it would help.
Yeah, the danger is with some of those high dopaminergic drugs. They're super normal stimulus. So you do the hardcore drugs and your brain goes to here, and it's like you can't get there normally. Where mushrooms they're not giving you that effect. Is there any stack that people could take of the functional ones? Cordyceps, lion's mane, maybe turkey tail. To obviously not going to give you the same exact benefits, but is there a stack that would maybe bring you close to like to the feeling that you get through microdosing with the increased energy, the serotonin release, and then the improved creativity and focus?
I think that the easiest answer is lion's mane. Lion's mane is a neuroprotective and a mushroom that provides neurogenesis properties, and it's totally legal. You can go into most like health food stores right now and pick up lion's mane mushrooms. We sell lion's mane in like a cool formulated blend with some other nootropics, and it can promote neurite outgrowth. It can improve your mood. It can help your stimulate brain function. And I think what's going to be really exciting is when psilocybin can be something that's utilized regularly. How can lion's mane and psilocybin be stacked? So that one I think can have a lot of potential.
Yeah, no, that's great. Um, what do you see? The next 5 years looking like in the mushroom space? I mean, you're obviously right at the forefront of the research and the manufacturing and growing. Is there anything that maybe like the public hasn't heard about, or anything that's kind of brewing up underneath the surface here that we should be really excited about in the near future?
Yeah, I think the functional medicinal mushrooms will become much more of a staple in the health food industry. Where you think of like vitamin C and vitamin D, you'll think of like reishi and different products like that. Psilocybin is going to be the wild wild west. We'll see where it goes. And then I think some of the new projects are kind of unrelated to medicine and nutraceuticals, but there's different sustainable industries erupting from the use of mushrooms. So mushrooms have a root system that's underground. When you think of mushrooms, you think of the fruit body, but most of the fungus is subterranean. It's like a what looks like a white web, like filaments under the soil. And some companies that we're working with right now are learning how to use that to make different materials like packaging alternatives. Instead of using like oil-based styrofoam, we can grow this mycelium in a way that can be a sustainable any material really. So it can be used as packaging material. It can be used as like housing insulation, car panels, different things like that. They've found ways to make this material into like fabrics, so it looks indistinguishable from leather. They've partnered with Adidas. Now, if you look up Mylo, Mylo, you can look up their partnership with Adidas, and they've created like a version of Stan Smith's with pure mushroom mycelium. Hermes has a partnership with a mushroom mycelium company making purses. And then the other piece of it is using that same exact technology and making meat alternatives. So they're finding that when you grow this pure mushroom mycelium and you compress it in a way, the fibers that it has is very similar in texture to different meats, steaks and bacon and things like that. And since mushrooms are so sponge-like and full of water, you can give them any flavoring you want really and make it taste virtually the same as bacon and chicken and steak. So I think that's going to be a very sustainable alternative to most meat products. And the protein levels are high, the sodium levels are low, the cholesterol is low, and it's much more sustainable and eco-friendly. So
Yeah, I'm all for rocking a pair of mushrooms Adidas, but I'm gonna stick with my ribeye and probably throw some mushrooms
yeah,
on top of it. Um, just my
no, I agree
personal,
with you.
just my
I agree
personal
with you
opinion.
too.
This is fascinating, man. If somebody is hearing this and this is their first like introduction to mushrooms, they obviously see them at the produce store, they pick them off of the pizza when they're a kid, they're like, I don't want those in my salad, like most of us grow up near the disgusting fungus that the mom tries to tell you to eat, but they're not really good for you, or you think that they're not really good for you. So if somebody is hearing this they're hearing this conversation for the first time, how do they get started with supplementing these things, where does a beginner begin?
Yeah, so we have our just launched line of supplements. You can go to alchemy, ALCHEMI mushrooms.com, and check us out on Instagram. We really pride ourselves on growing the highest quality functional mushrooms. Most of it is coming out of China, unfortunately. So our big mission was to bring this to the US and grow like high quality USDA organic mushrooms. So you can look up a lot of different supplements online. You can also go into your local Whole Foods, different vitamin stores, and find a lot of these mushrooms on the shelves. And yeah, I think that would be best first step. Always look at my recommendation is always just look at sourcing. Sourcing is key. You want to look at where your products are coming from. It says a lot about the product's quality.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, why are they coming out of China?
because it's been typically Eastern medicine, that's the center of the industry and growing these medicinal mushrooms. So they own, many farms that grow these mushrooms is coming out of their that nation. And I don't want to say everything coming out of China is poor quality product, but just the reputation that that country, a lot of agriculture and food products have. There may be very high quality producers there, but deciphering them from the poor qualities is like beyond our skill set. So we always just try to steer people in the direction of USDA or maybe Canadian grown mushrooms, because mushrooms are such powerful bioaccumulators. They're like sponges. So anything that goes is around the environment or in the soil or in the water, it goes right into the mushroom. So that's key. And then just education. I would actually recommend watching a Netflix documentary called Fantastic Fungi. There's a group of really brilliant individuals in the space right now put together this documentary, and it's mind blowing. I'm really interested in what you think about it after you watch it. Everyone that watches that shoots me a text. I'm like, dude, I had no idea about everything that mushrooms are doing right now. It's going to change the world. So, and I truly believe it too.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I'm definitely gonna check that out. You talked about paying attention to the sourcing. Is there anything else that people should be concerned with? Whether it's, I don't want to say, like, you can't overdose on functional mushrooms. I don't think so. But is there anything else that people should just be concerned with if they're getting into you know supplementing with mushrooms, or exploring more about this? Like, let's kind of throw some red flags out for people.
There hasn't been much out there showing that there's toxicity levels of taking too much. I would definitely just stick with the recommended dosage on the packaging. Why take
Because
that
more is
risk?
better, right? Isn't more is better of everything? Or at least that's what people
take the
think.
whole take the whole bottle, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's different ways to take them. We've like started our line with capsules. It's just the easiest way to take them. We're launching a new powder product in middle of October. It's kind of like, it's called Shroom Boost. So it's a small scoop that you can add to coffee, smoothies, teas, different things like that. Um, but you can also find different products. Different companies have tinctures, like extracts that you can drop in liquids, and just pure powder form. One thing that is kind of a big debate in this mushroom industry is the difference between fruit body, so the part of the mushroom that you see growing, and the mycelium that's underground. And there's a lot of skeptics on both sides saying you need this, you need only the mushroom fruit body because it has high levels of these compounds. And then there's people on the other side saying you need mycelium because it has different, broader spectrum of different nutrients. So our take is both is very important. Each part or component of the life cycle of the mushroom has different advantages to health. We know that mycelium in some mushrooms have higher antioxidant levels, and the fruit bodies have higher, antiviral properties. So limiting to just one is limiting the benefit you're going to get from these mushrooms. So one thing that can be key to look for is full spectrum. Uh, all of our products are full spectrum mushrooms, and yeah, that's definitely going to make it for a more potent product.
Yeah, that's amazing. We've obviously spent a vast majority of today talking about the functional, mushrooms, the medicinal side of things, but your store bought, produce ones, like, there's obviously benefits, to just eating those and having those as part of your diet. So people aren't eating mushrooms. Like, why should they? Like, what are the benefits of just having mushrooms in your regular diet?
Mushrooms, they're finding, people in countries, there's a high correlation with mushroom eaters and lower mortality rates. Mushroom eaters and lower breast cancer rates. Decrease in the rate of different ailments from high percentage of just eating a cup of mushrooms a day. And mushrooms are actually the only uh, food in the produce aisle that can naturally produce vitamin D. We're learning right now that vitamin D deficiency can lead to a lot of issues combating COVID-19. It's a few studies came out saying that, people that are struggling, they need to be taking high levels of vitamin D. They're deficient. And a huge percentage of the US is deficient in vitamin D. We're one of the most vitamin deficient countries in the world. Um, and mushrooms naturally can contain vitamin D. They have a chemical called ergosterol that converts UV light just like humans do. So when we're out in the sun, our skin can convert the UVB to vitamin D, and mushrooms do the same. So what we do with our mushrooms, mainly our button mushrooms, is we expose them to UV light, and that can increase the vitamin D count. And so you're getting your recommended daily dose right there.
That's fascinating. So, not saying that if you go outside and eat a mushroom every day, you'll you're not going to get COVID, but it can definitely be like a benefit to your immune system. I mean, yeah, I mean, you said it. Everybody, we live in boxes. We're told to stay inside. We sit in front of screens all day. That's why everybody is vitamin D deficient. But no, get outside. I did not know that. That's you can get vitamin D from mushrooms. That's fascinating. That's the reason why everybody right there needs to eat them.
Yeah,
Is there anything I haven't asked you? Go ahead.
I don't know. We covered a lot about different functional mushrooms. We're excited to see where they go. Yeah, I think there's so many different industries popping up in this space. It's just like hard to keep up with a lot of them. These technologies and I heard of scientists that are looking at energy usage out of mushrooms, like literally creating batteries out of mushrooms. So I can't even tell you about that. I don't even know how it works. I read briefly and it just blew my mind. But we're excited to see what directions this industry goes in because it can be used for so many different things. And then grow kits are a really fun way. A lot of different companies are making like grow at home kits that you can just purchase like a mini box, and it's the easiest thing to grow. You just spritz it, and over a course of a few days or weeks, and you can have your full flush of mushrooms, and that can be the easiest way. One, making an activity, get your medicine, and who knows, maybe in the future when psilocybin is potentially recreationally legalized, that can be a way that people can have more control over their medicine. They're literally growing their medicine in their own homes. So that's a revolutionary concept.
Yeah, that grow at home stuff sounds fascinating. And you can grow cordyceps, reishi, lion's mane. You just got to get the right like what are they? They're fungus though. Like so you don't drop a seed in the dirt. Like how do they grow?
Yeah, so most of the mushrooms can be grown at home pretty simply. Cordyceps is a little bit more difficult, but you're like lion's mane, a lot of pretty oyster mushrooms, and reishi can also be grown at home. Just takes a lot longer. But essentially, mushrooms don't have seeds; they have spores, which is kind of like pixie dust. And the way farmers grow mushrooms, we take that pixie dust and we kind of colonize and sprinkle it over a grain because that grain can become like the vehicle to get it into soil. So if we take that dust and we put it over the grain, the mycelium starts to colonize all of that grain, and it provides for it. Essentially, is like synthetically making a mushroom seed. So when we're selling grow kits, what we'll do is we'll put the seeds in a mixture of different substrate, different soil mediums. A lot of times it's wood chips because a lot of these functional mushrooms are wood decomposing mushrooms. So we'll inoculate those wood chips in a bag that is breathable, and we'll ship it to your house. So all you have to do is you get a little box, poke a hole in the bag, and everything's ready, and you just spritz it once or twice a day, and your mushrooms will fruit. So it makes it really, really easy.
Got it. That's fascinating. Amir, brother, I appreciate you so much. Today has been so informative. Literally, like 2 pages of notes. I wish everybody could see what I just wrote down. I literally am going to have to sit down and like try to reprocess all of this just to feel like I got a good take on it. So I really am super grateful for you and just your passion for sharing this information with people. So if people want to connect with you, they want to find more out about what you're doing out there at the farm, what you guys are doing over there at Alchemy. Where's the best place for people to connect with you, find you online, or where you're hanging out socially, if anywhere?
Yeah, you can reach us alchemymushrooms.com, alchemy with an I. We have a contact page there. You can be in direct contact with me, and then our Instagram, Alchemy Mushrooms on Instagram. Shoot us a DM and we'll get in contact. If any of your listeners like to learn about growing mushrooms or the benefits of mushrooms, we do a lot of like behind the scenes farm life on our farm. So
Oh, really?
it's
Oh,
a
that's
good place
awesome.
to check out how we do everything and learn more.
Yeah, I feel there's going to be a lot of people that are really interested in learning more about what you guys are doing over there. So I appreciate it, guys. We'll get all that information plugged down there. So, Mir, we have one question we end, every episode with. It's going to be a little bit off topic of what we discussed here. But the title of this podcast is the Superhuman Life, and what led us here. I shared with you a little bit of the work that we do. It's kind of been my own kind of personal transformation. It's kind of journey that I've been on for last 3-ish or so years. But when I talk about living a superhuman life, for me, Amir, it's really a belief system. It's a way that I try to show up in the world every single day. And it's the belief that we were put on this earth for a purpose. Every single one of us has a specific calling on your life. And I think you know what yours is. But that's only one part of living a superhuman life. The second part is understanding that calling and then doing everything within our power from a physical perspective, from an emotional perspective, for us to grow so we can bring that purpose to the world. So that's what I talk about when I talk about living a superhuman life. But I like to get the guest take every single episode. So as we bring it home here, Amir, how would you define living a superhuman life?
I actually completely agree with your sentiment. I think life is about finding your passion, and it's easier said than done. I mean, everyone says, look for your passion and go for it, but a lot of people just don't know what they want to do. And it really takes a lot of trial and error of, testing out different things and seeing what draws you. And those things in your life that you obsess over are the things that you're passionate about. For me, it was always nutrition when I was younger. And then after going through this was, really catapult to nutrition and learning about how optimally the body functions with proper nutrition. And yeah, I think living a superhuman life is finding that realization, however long it takes you. You can be 60 years old and find your passion. And then just doing everything in your power to benefit others with that passion. I think that, that covers being superhuman.
Absolutely, man. Amen to that. And a lot of times for people, it's like your purpose, your mission is gonna come out of your own struggles, and many times it's suffering. For you, like you had to go through this Lyme disease, being told like there's no cure for this, having doctors, for years telling you like you're stuck. We can help you live a better life, but you're gonna have this forever. And it's like you were so adamant and persistent, like not believing that, not getting that answer, and then seeing out and finding a better way. And now you're in a position where you can share your story, your overcoming with the world, and provide supplements and medicine and education to other people. So I'm right in line with you there, brother. Guys, we appreciate you so much. Really hope today's episode was educational, was valuable to you. If it did, obviously make sure to connect with alchemymushrooms.com and connect with Amir over on IG. But if you found value out of today's conversation, guys, you can help us continue to grow this mission and grow this show in two specific ways. First off, if you haven't done so yet, please leave us that 5-star rating or written review, whether it's on Apple or whatever podcast platform you are listening to. But more importantly, if there's somebody maybe in your life that needs to hear this conversation, do us a favor by sharing this with them. But guys, we appreciate you so much. For Amir, Frank Rich, guys, we'll see you, and we love you.